Kristjaan, the summer transfer window has now closed, and following a pretty non-eventful deadline day, how would you assess the window in its entirety?
Well, we're certainly happy it's closed. I think it's a process which takes over, obviously, everything that goes on really around the football club, and it's such an important thing to ensure that we get the right players through the door and we get the right balance in the squad. Overall, we're really happy with where the squad's at the close of the window. We had a really eventful start, and we tried to be as proactive as we could, and that was certainly, I think, gave us a really good start to what was obviously a window where we had a lot of change. But as ever, it will always come down to the last few days and how negotiations play out and how we want to make certain decisions. And I know obviously it provides a bit of a spectacle as well for obviously supporters and fans up and down the country.
That final 24 hours concluded with an incredible win over Southampton, with so many players from new signings to those close to returning from injury not involved. It really demonstrates that continued growth in the team.
Yeah, look, we really feel there's a lot of depth in the squad. We think there's a lot of potential in the group, and I think days like Saturday show that potential and that depth. It's always disappointing when you've got what you would consider key players missing, but I think key players stay being key players when they're being pushed, and I think for the likes of one or two of in our group, I think to have a buoyant group with players that feel like they can get in the team makes the standard a little bit higher, gives Tony all the options that he requires to obviously make the right selections and obviously get a winning team. And I think on Saturday what I was most proud about the team was just our bold, real high press on the pitch. I think man to man all the way across the pitch when they've got possession of the football, I think is a really brave thing to do. I think that's what supporters want to see from our team.
Let's start with your favourite topic when it comes to the transfer window: strikers. 4 new strikers arrived. What will they bring to the team?
Yeah, well, look, I know strikers brings it's a topical conversation, and we understand that. I think for us, it's about trying to make sure that we've got that flexible forward line that can score goals and can work together. We're not a team that requires that pinpoint number 9 that plays a certain specific role. We play lots of different shapes. We change in games within shapes. But what we want to have is we want to have players that can come and do different roles and have different profiles. We certainly think across the 4 players that we've got some real variety in there. And hopefully what that does is it equips the coaches to obviously make sure that the team's as capable and as functional on a given Saturday against a given opponent, and we can obviously come out in those games on top.
Several forwards did leave the club this window, including Isaac, Leon and also Ross Stewart after 2.5 successful years on Wearside. 3 players that we wish well.
Yeah, I think with the first 2 are very similar. I think in terms of can we provide the number of minutes that they require and the opportunity, and I think we have to be fair to players that if we're going to propose and promote the fact that we're a place of giving opportunity, then we also have to try to find the right opportunities to those players, and they're not always going to be within our first team environment. And we wish Leon and Isaac really the best of luck. We think we had 2 good outcomes for both of those players. Ross is obviously a different situation. I think it's a very complex matter because the player obviously has performed to a really high level for our football club, and we feel really privileged to have had him here. We're really proud of the progress he's made here. I think people would have probably made a judgment on Ross Stewart joining when he came here. I think we've maximised his potential, and I think obviously he's maximised his opportunity here. And sometimes that's the outcome. Players will move on, players will have different opportunities. What we have to do is ensure that we protect the club most of all, and I think what we've tried to do with that situation is make the best offer we possibly could to retain him, which is our number 1 priority, and I've said that throughout all the communication internally and externally. But there also comes a moment where you have to make a difficult decision, and once you've made that difficult decision, and probably a difficult decision for the player as well to move on, then we have to protect the football club and try to get the best deal, and I certainly feel we did that.
Bailey Wright, Carl Winchester, Danny Barton, Lyndon Gooch also left the club this summer. 4 players who really made their mark on the club and obviously played big roles in terms of getting us out of League One and into the Championship.
Yeah, I think they all fall into the same bracket. Really top individuals who contributed a huge amount to the football club. When we got promoted, we obviously got promoted in a difficult fashion through the playoffs, and it didn't leave much time. I think everyone obviously celebrated and everyone dispersed for the summer. It was really important. Myself and Tony spoke to all those players at the end of the season and probably just retrospectively provided a big thank you to them, because I don't think we would have managed to jump over that quite large hurdle without those types of personalities and individuals in the changing room and on the pitch. So the massive thank you to those guys. They should be really highly thought of. I think they are with the supporters, but at the same time they've also got their own individual aspirations to play games, manage and look after their families, etc. And again, we've always tried to be the football club that supports those when they're coming into the club and when they're leaving the club.
Alex Bass, Elliot Embleton and Joe Anderson also left on loan, 3 players who need to play regularly, albeit for varying reasons.
Yeah, I think we've got some really good solutions for each of them. We felt Joe's got some real talent and some upside in terms of his development and where he can get to. But to do that, he needed to play games. It was always our plan to bring him in, settle him in with the group, and then find the right loan opportunity. And he's currently performing at a really, really high level down at Shrewsbury. With Alex, I think the number 2 goalkeeping spot's really, really difficult. I think limited opportunity to play. And I think he's done really, really well to drive the training standards, be around all the things that we need him to be around. And it was the right opportunity to give him some time on the grass and for us to try to change over that position and evolve a different person in there. And Elliot's is just purely a rehabilitation programme. I think he needs to get minutes on the grass, and whether or not we can provide them, we weren't 100% sure. And when the window closes, you have to make a decision. And hopefully we've made the right decision that he can go to Derby, play loads of games, and we can reassess and have a look at him in January about what we're going to do moving forward.
Despite those departures, competition within the squad is really, really high, isn't it? There's plenty of depth, plenty of quality. We've obviously seen some of those new signings come in and make an impact, with some of them that came in on deadline day also still to come back into the group.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen that the players have made impacts all over the place. I think, look, for supporters, they see that they want to see that impact on the pitch, and naturally we also want to see that impact on the pitch. You can't just always get impact straight away on the pitch. You know, Jensen, for example, struggled with his injury, which has been really unfortunate for him. The players are acclimatising and adapting. But then when you look at players like Daki and look at Job, they've come in and seamlessly integrated into the group and obviously out there performing, scoring, which is obviously really, really pleasing. We're really optimistic about all those players that we've brought in that are going to come and contribute at some point. And look, it has to be the right moment for them. We're signing some of those players off the back of playing in different leagues, different environments, different countries. So I think we've got to be fair to those guys to judge them at the right moment. And like I said, hopefully they're going to really come and have a real big impact for us.
That competition is not just down to new signings, of course. There's been a retention of key players throughout the summer, and we've seen many commit their long-term futures to the club, which obviously demonstrates the progress we're making as the club, because people feel like they can progress with us.
Yeah, definitely. I think, look, our retention strategy has been really, really high in terms of where we've focused, and I think we've managed to retain some really highly talented players that are not only performing on the pitch now, but we think they can perform at a higher level in the future. I think it's a mark of confidence to everyone that's working at the football club that they feel they want to re-sign, because it would obviously be an easy decision for those guys not to. So we're really, really pleased about that. I think it shows where the football club's at, that you can retain that level of talent. And I think it shows where their mentality is at, which they believe in obviously what's going on here. They believe in what happens behind the scenes. They believe in the football club. And ultimately they want to be part of a successful team, and which is what we all want to be part of. So really, really pleased we can get those guys over the line in terms of renegotiations. And hopefully what that does, it just starts to make sure that our succession planning strategy and, you know, how we're integrating players into the group becomes obviously a lot more seamless. And like I said, we want to have continuity, you know, and keeping those players around the building is really, really important to us.
And of course that retention also extends beyond those kind of first team regulars like your Luke O'Niens, Dan Ballards, Trey Humes. A few academy players also committing their futures to the club this summer. Yeah,
definitely. Look, you can always lose focus around the depth and those younger players. I think in Matty Young, Tommy Watson, Chris Rigg, Zach Johnson, that's the future of Sunderland, and we have to protect that future. And the football club and the ownership have invested heavily to try to ensure that our academy programme is optimised at the highest possible level. We've had loads of infrastructure changes, improvements. We've brought into new staff and people. And I think those younger players have seen that as well. But what they've also seen is they've seen a football club which is going to give them an opportunity, and they feel it's the right place to be. And all those young players that we just spoke about there would have the opportunity to go in a number of other football clubs, but they've decided to stay here. And I think that just shows how powerful the project is at the minute.
2-week break now for us all to catch our breath, and then we really are into the thick of the championship season. How do you assess progress this season? I know many people will suggest that, you know, it should be fifth after last season's top six finish, but how do you look at it, and how do the board look at it in terms of our on-pitch and off-pitch performance this season?
Yeah, I think that naturally you want to see a better position. I understand that. I think for us, we want to see an evolving team. You know, we're trying to develop our playing identity. I think you've seen that. I think we're a flexible team on the pitch. We can play, and predominantly our default setting is to be a possession-based team, but we can also be a really, really effective counter-attacking team, which I think you see on Saturday. So I think we want to see our performances, and we want to see our individuals get better. We have a really, really complex individual development program that operates at the training ground. So through those two elements, we hopefully see on-pitch performance. But I don't think we need to be nervous around what position that finishes this year. We're always aiming for the highest position we can possibly achieve. But we also want to make sure that behind the scenes, all those processes, all those hard-working individuals that don't get much light shone upon the work they do, they're operating at a really, really high level. They're contributing, the culture's positive. And I think once you start getting the right mix of all those things and a feel-good factor around the club and supporters understanding what we're doing, how we're doing it and why we're doing it, then I think that starts becoming something quite powerful. And hopefully that's going to be the right mixture to get us elevated into, obviously, a top 6 position, but also like in the future, a top 1 or 2 position. And that's what we have to try to aspire to.